The third episode of the Book of Boba Fett really pushed two ideas: that Boba Fett is supposed to be absolutely terrifying, and that he's basically the Godfather. Welcome back to Streaming the Galaxy. I'm Rocket Riley, and the Book of Boba Fett Episode 3, The Streets of Mos Espa, was just released on Disney+, and it was jam-packed full of action and intense storytelling. Now, let's dive into a complete breakdown and review of the episode, looking at all the Easter eggs and references you may have missed, as well as the parallels between Boba Fett and the Godfather, Don Vito Corleone. The episode starts us off with a bit of exposition where the ex-torture droid explains that Mos Espa was split into three crime factions after the sail barge disaster, calling back to the events of Return of the Jedi where Boba Fett ended up in the Sarlacc pit. The three crime factions seem quite similar to the rivaling crime families that you may see in mobster movies such as The Godfather or Goodfellas. This presentation is interrupted, however, by a visit from a water merchant upset about some street youths who keep stealing his water. This interaction is very similar to scenes in mobster movies where people come to request things from the Don, mostly in the form of protection. So, Boba Fett goes into the streets of Mos Espa and finds the gang who had been stealing from the water merchant, and he finds they're only stealing because there's no work to be found. The gang is made up of humans who have body enhancements from droids, very similar to something you may see in Cyberpunk 2077 or Alita Battle Angel. Boba then hires them to join his crime family and goes back to the palace. In his back to tank, Boba has yet another flashback to his time with the Tusken Raiders, and he travels to Mos Eisley to meet with the Pike Syndicate, which we saw in the first couple episodes of the series, as well as in the animated Star Wars series. He passes by someone placing stormtrooper helmets on spikes, a scene we first saw in The Mandalorian. We also see a woman with 3 pet droids, who is most certainly Peli Motto, the mechanic who we also first met in The Mandalorian. These two references undoubtedly point to the idea that the Book of Boba Fett is basically a season 2.5 for The Mandalorian. After meeting with the Pikes, who tell him they can't pay tribute because they already paid it to the Swoop Gang, Boba returns to his home with the Tuskens but finds it destroyed with every member of his new family dead. This calls back to the scene where Luke returned to his home to find his aunt and uncle dead and everything destroyed as well. The scenes that follow are highly emotional, since we've come to a greater appreciation for the Tuskens and their culture, as The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett have portrayed these individuals in a completely different light. Similar to how the building of the Gaffi Stick mirrors Jedi building their lightsabers, the funeral pyre the Tuskens were placed on in their deaths mirrors the funeral pyres Jedi were placed upon at their deaths. This just points to the idea that there are likely even more similarities between Tusken culture and Jedi mysticism. Boba is then ripped out of his flashback as Black Krrsantan pulls him out of his back to tank and throws him across the room. This fight scene is one of the coolest we've seen so far, since we finally get to see exactly what a Wookiee is capable of in combat. The only time we've seen something close to this is in the final scenes on Kessel in Solo: A Star Wars Story, when Chewie helped the prisoners escape. We also get to see some of the new crime family members' bodily enhancements, with one even using an electric whip. Although they aren't able to overpower Krrsantan, they do trap him in the pit below the throne room. Later, the Hutt twins arrive to apologize with a gift for Boba Fett, a Rancor, which is lying beside Danny Trejo, who is now officially a part of the Star Wars universe. This Rancor could be Muchi, the young Rancor we met in the Bad Batch. The Hutts then explain that they're leaving Tatooine and that Boba should too, since Mos Espa has been promised to another crime syndicate, likely meaning the Pikes, although they could mean Crimson Dawn, which is currently being led by Kira, who we saw in Solo: A Star Wars Story. The twins explain that war is bad for business, which Jabba the Hutt frequently said before his death, and then they leave Tatooine. Danny Trejo's character later explains to Boba the lighter side of Rancors, saying the witches of Dathomir used to ride them. These witches were seen in the Clone Wars television series, as well as in the video game Jedi Fallen Order. It's explained that Rancors are quite calm unless provoked, and that they imprint upon the first person they see. Since Boba says that he wants to learn how to ride it, similar to how he rode a giant creature in the Star Wars Holiday Special in which he first appeared, Boba is the first person the Rancor sees, starting their bond, which will surely grow over time. Boba and Fennec Shand head to the Mayor's Palace, which leads to a speeder chase. This chase scene is very reminiscent of scenes from American Graffiti, which showcased similarly bright-colored car scenes and which was also directed by George Lucas. At one point, one of the speeders actually crashes through an oil painting of Jabba, which is a bit silly, and the scene ends with the mayor's major domo crashing sideways into a cart full of fruit, calling back to when Biff crashed into a truck full of fertilizer in Back to the Future. The major domo then confesses that the mayor is working with the Pike Syndicate. The Pikes arrive on Tatooine, Fennec says that they're going to war, and Boba says that they will be ready. It'll be very interesting to see how this war plays out, since it'll likely be very similar to crime family wars we've seen in mobster movies. The outcome of this war will likely depend heavily upon who the city's leaders and rich elite support, whether it be Boba Fett or the Pikes. Overall, this episode was great. Although there were a few scenes which seemed a bit unnecessary, the scene where Boba bonded with the Rancor and the Black Krrsantan fight scene were phenomenal. I really can't wait to see where the series takes us, and if you're interested to see where the upcoming Obi-Wan Kenobi series will take us, check out this video. Also, don't forget to subscribe, like this video, and thanks for watching.